Sam Turgeon with Sunlight Realty. I've known Sam and his wife Winnie for a number of years, and they're great realtors. They do a great job, and they're well connected into the senior services community. So we've had a working relationship, and I wanted to take the opportunity today to kind of have a conversation with Sam about what he is seeing in specifically the commercial real estate market in light of the pandemic that's going on. And even though our focus is in my practice on estate planning and elder law, on the estate planning side, we do have a lot of business owners. We have a lot of investors and entrepreneurs who are questioning whether now is a good time or a bad time to jump into commercial property. And so, Sam, I'll kind of turn that over to you. What are you seeing now versus, 3, 4, 5 months ago?
Sure. Well, it's this COVID thing has really put it's injected a lot of uncertainty into the marketplace right now. We notice that there are certain sectors that are more hard hit than others. For example, your retail locations, recreation and leisure. Think about any place that's heavily dependent upon tourism. Those places are taking a major beating. Also, restaurants are severely impacted by this. There's also things that with the impact those are the immediate impacts. Once the lockdown started, their income streams dried up almost immediately. So that was the immediate effect. We're also expecting some long-term effects to happen in ancillary marketplaces. Like, for example, think if you're in Orlando and you own a small restaurant that's entirely dependent upon the tourism traffic, you may have a few months worth of reserves to be able to continue paying the lease or paying the mortgage. But if that income stream doesn't start soon, you're going to see some additional defaults happening over the course of time. So that ripple effect is going to happen over time. Interestingly, we've seen some of our investment portfolios that are either in the multifamily sector or in the suburban office sector, medical office, suburban office. Those are actually largely unaffected. Of course, they are affected if you're a non-essential business. So that's something to kind of consider. If you're an investor and you're looking at a piece of property, you have to underwrite your tenants a little bit more carefully now. People ask, is it a good time to get in? Is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to sell? And the problem is that mindset oftentimes is a result of a speculative mindset. So if you're investing for income, if the income makes sense today and you have a fairly stable tenant, we're likely to be able to ride this COVID thing out fairly easily. But I will tell you that the impact is going to be directly proportionate to the duration of these lockdowns. So Hillsborough County, for example, seems to be extending the lockdown a little bit further than Pasco County. Pasco County is starting to open up a little bit. And in other areas where more population density is, you're going to start seeing those areas are going to be more affected long-term because of the whole social distancing requirement. So it remains to be seen where things go, but in the past several years, there's been a lot of money floating around that's looking to acquire property. They're buying it at super low cap rates, which simply means that they don't leave a lot of room for problems. And this COVID thing, of course, is a major problem, and it's going to test a lot of people and their finances in those investments.
So let me ask you this: when this is all over, I know I'm back to speculation world, but I think that's where all the gossip happens.
Yeah, of course.
So what we're seeing is that quite a few restaurants have already in the local Bay Area have already said they're not coming back.
Yeah.
And some of those are in plazas that are more rental based, but then some of them are freestanding buildings that are owned.
Yes.
Do you think that is going to in some way dilute the valuation when more properties come up on the market? Maybe businesses are going into foreclosure or the properties are going into foreclosure. Do you think that is going to produce, an opportunity for investors who are trying to time it if they can time it correctly?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, there's always opportunity. Unfortunately, when you have issues such as this or 2007, 2008, those are opportunities for investors that want to come into the marketplace and are willing to take the risk of either repurposing the property or being able to find a new tenant for that property. And of course, I'm assuming that we're not talking about an owner occupant, but a restaurant that wants to open and has a plan for takeout or for a second wave of this kind of thing, they're definitely well within their right, and they're going to be able to pick up property a lot cheaper than what it was, because we are expecting that there's going to be more and more distress over the course of time. I did hear recently that the mortgage-backed security market on the commercial side is expecting a lot of defaults. So I don't think that the ripple effect is over. Look, by no means am I a pessimist, okay? But I am trying to get a realistic bearing on where things are, where they're going, and where the opportunities are going to be anywhere from 6 to 12 months away. So there are definitely going to be opportunities coming online here.
Sam, can you hear me? I think we just lost audio for a moment.
Yep, I can hear you now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Yeah. So one of the things that we always talk about to our investors as clients, and we do asset protection and we do estate planning for them, is when they're purchasing, to work with their realtor to make sure that their entity is set up properly. Believe it or not, we have a lot of people buying not only residential investment property, but commercial real property in their own names. Yes. And when you're buying it in cash, I guess it's easy for an untrained, unsophisticated realtor to maybe not ask the right questions and just, hey, Bob and Susie Smith want to buy it. Let's put it in their name and then we'll just go to closing so I can get my commission. What do you recommend to your clients who are buying investment property on how to structure the transaction? Is there any tips and tricks that you've learned throughout the years that you can share?
Yeah, buying investment property in your own personal name is a risky proposition. We always recommend that they seek legal counsel about that decision. Some folks say, hey, look, I can buy a big insurance policy and that's going to protect me, but that's not always, that may help them in a slip and fall. But if there's a circumstance where they're sued from outside that property is now at risk. And of course, you're an attorney, you would know better than I would about that. But we do see a lot of the commercial guys, they are buying in LLCs or Florida land trusts. And maybe you could address this, but the Florida land trusts, from what I understand, don't offer the same legal protection as an LLC. Is that correct?
Correct. So the land trust, people think of a trust and they think trusts are for asset protection. Mm-hmm. And quite often they will try to use a land trust for thinking that it is going to protect them. Really, what a land trust provides is anonymity, so that if someone just scours the public record and says, hey, what properties do Sam and Winnie own? Because maybe I don't like them, or I want to sue them or figure out what they have. The land trust prevents that property from being exposed to the public in your own personal name. However, if you get sued and you are in a deposition and they ask the question, what assets do you own? You cannot hide behind I have a land trust and I don't need to tell you, in order to prevent disclosing that. So the land trust is really step one. And then from there, assigning that interest into an LLC makes sense, because now that provides a layer of asset protection. Often we will talk to clients about multi-member LLCs, so we can distribute the ownership over multiple individuals. And the theory behind that is, if one of the owners gets sued, a judge would be very reluctant to give the entire property and disadvantage the other owners for your creditors. And then we can also get very creative, and we use a lot of secondary LLCs out of the state of Nevada. So Nevada's charging orders are very different than Florida. So in a perfect world, your property would be owned by a land trust whose interest is assigned to a Nevada LLC, whose interest is then assigned to a Florida LLC. And that really gives you the best amount of protection. And even savvy investors will kind of understand that dynamic, and they may have already set that up. Mm-hmm. But where 90% of those investors who are even savvy fall short is on the estate planning side, is that coordinating your LLC interest, however you have it owned, with your estate plan, so that if you pass away, that is not getting all clogged up in the probate process. Because we see a lot of a lot of properties that would have been a going concern interest and actually be worth a lot more because it's running a successful business. We're seeing a lot of them go down in value because they're being sold at a fire sale in a probate. One of the ones that comes to mind right now, unfortunately, is the Lucky Dill right across the street from International Plaza. That took forever to get off the ground. I know they had some issues. And then as soon as it opened, unfortunately, the owner passed away. And my understanding is that property is now in probate. And I'm sure that it's going to be worth less in 2 to 3 years once it spits out the probate process than if it would have been coordinated in an estate plan and been able to have been sold sooner, potentially with a thriving business in place.
So let me ask you a question. Do you have a certain net worth recommendation where somebody should start with the type of process that you just said, or should they start right from the very beginning with this?
I mean, I think the conversation should be had from the beginning because the complexity and quite honestly, the corresponding legal fees may differ greatly depending on how many things are at play and how much you have at risk. So a person with a $500,000 in investable assets may not want to spend money on an offshore asset protection trust. It just may be overkill.
Sure.
But that same individual that has $10 million in investables may want to spend, whatever that number is, may want to spend $50,000 on protecting 10 million. They may want to only spend $5,000 on protecting 500,000. In any event, the moral of that story is your protection measures should always be appropriate for your risk. Mm-hmm. And the more risk you have, the more you should at least be thinking about protection, because we're seeing higher and higher judgments in lawsuits. And a lot of the time, even recently, there was a very well-known personal injury attorney that owns the airspace that said, don't feel bad about suing people, because when you're suing them, you're really only suing the insurance company. Right. And the underlying is you're not hurting the person. You're putting it to the insurance company. And let's be honest, who doesn't like putting it to the insurance company, because we have to pay those premiums all the time. So people don't feel bad and juries don't feel bad. What they don't realize is that often the jury doesn't know where your policy ends. Right. So if you have $10 million in assets and you have a $5 million umbrella policy that might cover an asset, that's great. If they get a $7 or $8 million judgment against you, that attorney's going to take the $5 million from your insurance, and they're going to try to go after you personally for the remaining $2 to $3 million, which could wipe you out. And without the proper asset protection placeholders, you could lose everything, even thinking I've done a great job and I have $5 million of insurance, which is a big number. Sure, it may not be a big enough number.
I see. It's interesting that you were mentioning about how the probate process essentially starts devaluing the value of the actual asset itself. We've recently done a few probate deals where, even though it's going through the probate process, the property sits for a long time, it's empty, it's not generating income, it's incurring deferred maintenance. And of course, the second somebody finds out, a buyer finds out that the property is in a probate situation, their offer prices are definitely, they soften greatly. Based on that one fact alone. They smell that it is distressed, and distressed property always means lower values. So if it is, maybe I don't understand the probate process as much as an attorney, but how do you keep an ongoing business concern going through the through the probate process? I mean, is that something that's even possible?
Well, it is, and it all depends on how it was set up initially. In a perfect world, you'll have a great operating agreement that will have contingencies based on the disability, incapacity, or death of one of the principals. So the operating agreement can also help keep the business running. And then there are provisions within the probate code where we can authorize the personal representative to continue the business interest. But usually the personal representative of an estate wasn't the business owner. Sometimes they're related and they worked in the business, but quite often they are an unrelated party, a spouse who maybe didn't understand the nuts and bolts of the business, or certainly a child. And sometimes they live out of state. and trying to, I mean, as a business owner, if you weren't there to run your business, it probably isn't going to work as well.
Yeah.
And back to your previous point, when I bought my home on Lake Keystone, I bought it out of a probate estate, and it had been sitting for a number of years. And I got one heck of a deal that several realtors in that market told me it was impossible to buy a property on Lake Keystone for what I paid for it. But I think the family just got frustrated enough because they couldn't sell it during the boom, which would have been great for them, bad for the person who bought it, but great for them. And by the time they got approval through the court system to sell it, bad timing for that family. It ended up, the crash had happened. And so the property was worth less than half of what they could have sold it if their parents would have had a trust, and they would have been able to move that property within 2 to 3 months of their parents passing away. Honestly, they would have sold it for 2 to 3 times what I paid for it.
Yeah.
So they got a double whammy. They not only got the distress that it was in probate, they compounded that at arguably one of the worst crashes in the real estate market that we've seen in our lifetime. And so they got hit twice as hard, and they really got a lot less for that property. And as not an investor, but as somebody who was looking to buy a property, I understood that dynamic, and I made them what many would consider a very low ball offer, but it was the only offer they had at the table at the time. And they decided, like, hey, we don't know if the market's going to continue to go down. Let's take it while the getting's good and get out of it. Worked out for me. But looking back at it, if those were my parents, and that was their home that they had been in since 1960, and it had gained so much equity, it would not have been the perfect solution. We still have you, Sam?
I think we just lost you there.
Okay.
Looks like you're
We're back.
on track.
All right. So yeah, I think generally, whether you're talking about your own home, and I know you guys do some residential stuff, you have done it in the past as well, whether it's your own home, rental properties, true commercial space, the idea is that you want to work with a realtor who understands this. I know the commercial market, I think, is attractive for a lot of realtors, because when they're looking at their percentage and they go, hey, if I'm going to make 3% of $100,000 house or a 3% of $1 million building, I'd like to go with the $1 million building, please.
Of course.
And like lawyers, who have the diploma on the wall. So in theory, I could practice any area of law. That doesn't mean that I'm good at it. And it doesn't mean that I would be doing a service to my clients by taking whatever walks in the door because I have a law degree. And just like a lot of realtors who I think there's fast and easy money in the commercial space and they have a license to do it. So, hey, let's go after the big money. I think that the takeaways are work with someone in the commercial space who truly understands it, who's not just seeing a higher commission. And because there are pitfalls. What are some of the pitfalls you're seeing that new realtors or realtors that are not familiar with commercial transactions, what are some of the things they fall down on?
A lot of the times what we see is they don't really understand the business side of the business. So for example, if somebody is buying a commercial piece as an investment, they may not know what the environmental requirements are. And they also don't know what the financing requirements are, because those are two completely different beasts between the residential and the commercial side. So if they're unable to run the math on a building and be able to accurately predict what kind of income streams are going to come out of that building and what the banks are going to finance, they could be doing their disservice to the client, because there are much larger deposits that are at risk when in a commercial deal. So what we actually tend to find is that most real estate agents, everybody seems to be able to throw a rock and hit one. I mean, there's millions of them out there, but their skill set is limited mostly towards the residential side of the business. There are some highly educated commercial brokers that are out there, and they are very skilled people. We take a lot of training from those guys because, for example, we're part of the CCIM Institute, and we've been doing the CCIM classes, which is a chartered commercial investment member, and basically, or certified commercial investment manager member. But the bottom line is that that whole procedure, the whole process of that education is to give the best value in the way of investment property for commercial buyers and sellers. There are also things like a 1031 exchange, economic opportunity zones. These things are not taught in real estate school. They may be glanced over, but there's no in-depth knowledge that is out there. So if you're buying or selling, you're going to want to really make sure that whoever you're dealing with has some experience in it and has the knowledge of what it is that you're looking to accomplish. The way that we've always treated things is if it's not something that's really within our wheelhouse, we'll at least refer you to somebody that would be more appropriate for what you're looking to accomplish.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then that's why I appreciate doing business with you and Winnie, is that I think a mark of a true professional is to understand their wheelhouse, to put the client's interest first, even if that means a reduced fee or bringing on a partner that understands this more than you and taking a smaller commission, or sometimes just referring it out.
Yes.
We have that opportunity all the time. And I'm a big believer in life and in business in karma. And if you treat people well and you do good things to them, it will open doors. People will appreciate your honesty, and your business will grow without you being greedy and trying to take a fee on something that is really not your forte. But a lot of people take anything they can get.
Client, that's a major problem. I mean, the sign of integrity is knowing what your limitations are. And if you want to, like, for example, one of the things that we did was in areas of expertise that we don't have, we've aligned with a couple of people that have been mentoring us in these certain areas, whether it be larger multifamily or larger office buildings, that kind of stuff. And that way, at least we can provide a team effort to get the transaction completed. But definitely, if it's not something that's in your wheelhouse, you should be referring it.
Yeah, no, and that's how I got into elder law, is I had a mentor. And that's how I got into probate, is I had a mentor, because like you guys in real estate school and studying for your exam, it truly doesn't, at least for me, it doesn't prepare you to be an attorney, to run a business,
right,
and really understand the ins and outs. You only get it through experience. And your only two options are, take the case that you don't know what you're doing, fumble your way through it, and learn at your client's expense.
right.
Or take the time to get the additional education, find a mentor, and utilize that to build your experience, but not at the cost of doing a poor job for your client.
No, absolutely. Completely agree. You have to do a service. And like you said, karma credit, it always comes back, good or bad.
Good or bad. Yeah. Well, Sam, listen, I appreciate your time today. We'll have this live. We're broadcasting it live. We'll also have it on the More Tolero Law Facebook page. Feel free to share that on your social media pages. And we appreciate you. We're going to have you back again, I think next week, for another real estate topic. And I've appreciated your time today. Thank you so much. You guys stay safe and have a great weekend.
Thank you. You as well. Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.